What happens when a fan-favorite comedian steps onto a daytime talk show stage, and instead of playing along, calmly dismantles the host using nothing but quiet confidence and brutal honesty? What you're about to hear isn't just awkward television, it's one of the most jaw-dropping moments daytime TV has ever seen, because what unfolded between Joy Behar and Leanne Morgan wasn't an interview at all. It was a public unraveling, broadcast live to millions who weren't ready for what came next. Before we get into it, take a second to subscribe and leave a comment because this story doesn't ease in, it explodes. Joy Behar was seated at the table with the look she's perfected over decades, the knowing smirk, the posture that says this is her arena and everyone else is just visiting. Studio lights reflected off her flawless hair as she skimmed her notes, already convinced this would be another effortless win. After more than 40 years in television, Joy had learned one rule above all else: control the room early, strike fast, and never back down. The producers had booked Leanne Morgan, a comedian with sold-out theaters and a massive online following, a woman whose brand of humor had connected with millions across the country. But Joy didn't see a star. She saw a soft-spoken Southern comic, someone she assumed would fold under pressure. Easy material, easy target. What she didn't realize was that she was about to hand the spotlight to the one person who wouldn't play by her rules. "All right, we're back," Joy announced with theatrical flair, her voice carrying that familiar edge. "I'm joined by Leanne Morgan, who apparently thinks jokes about small-town life make her the next big thing in comedy." The tone wasn't subtle. This wasn't curiosity, it was a setup. "So tell us, honey, what makes your little story so special?" Honey, little, special. Each word landed like a calculated jab, meant to shrink Leanne before she ever opened her mouth. The co-hosts shifted in their seats. They'd felt this tension before. Everyone in that studio knew what usually came next. Leanne, meanwhile, sat calmly in a simple, elegant outfit, nothing flashy, nothing forced. While Joy's look screamed polish and production, Leanne's presence radiated authenticity. She smiled gently, but her eyes were alert, measuring, reading the room. She already knew exactly who she was dealing with. "Well, Joy," Leanne began, her Tennessee accent warm and steady, "I think what makes my comedy special is that it comes from real life, real people, real struggles. Not everybody needs to talk down to folks or put on a show to get a laugh." The shift was instant. The energy changed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't aggressive, but it landed. The first blow had been delivered with kindness. Joy's smile flickered just for a moment before snapping back into place. "Oh, please," she scoffed. "Real comedy takes intelligence and sophistication. Anyone can tell hometown stories and get laughs from people who don't know any better." The words were dismissive, wrapped in faux laughter, but the studio could feel it. The response wasn't landing the way it used to. Leanne leaned forward slightly, her voice still soft, but now unmistakably sharp. "You know what I find interesting, Joy?" The audience leaned in with her. "I've watched this show for years, and I keep waiting for you to say something genuinely funny, instead of just something mean." Silence. Absolute silence. You could hear the hum of the studio lights. The moment stretched on, heavy and uncomfortable. This wasn't banter anymore. This was a reckoning. Joy's face flushed. Decades of authority suddenly felt fragile. "Excuse me?" Her voice shot up. "I've been doing comedy longer than you've been alive, sweetie. Don't come on my show and lecture me about humor." Another attempt to belittle. Another swing aimed at dominance. But Leanne didn't flinch. "Oh, honey," she replied gently, almost sympathetically. "I'm not lecturing, I'm just noticing. Where I'm from, we were taught that being cruel isn't the same thing as being funny, but maybe that's just small-town values." Small-town values. The words hung in the air like a final verdict. Joy's hands tightened against the table, knuckles whitening as the confidence she'd relied on for decades began to slip right there, in front of a live audience that could feel the balance of power shifting in real time. And that was only the beginning. "Small-town values?" Joy scoffed, attempting to regain control. "You mean small-minded thinking? Real comedy challenges people. It makes them think. It's not all sunshine and rainbows like your little folksy routine." Her words sounded sharp, but there was something off. She was running out of ammunition, and everyone in the studio could feel it. "You're absolutely right, Joy," Leanne replied softly, nodding thoughtfully. But her words were a trap, laid with surgical precision. Real comedy does challenge people. But tell me, when was the last time you told a joke that brought people together instead of tearing them apart? When was the last time you made someone feel better about themselves instead of worse? When was the last time your comedy healed instead of hurt? 3 questions, 3 bullets, 3 direct hits aimed squarely at the core of everything Joy Behar claimed to be. The room went silent. For the first time in 4 decades of quick comebacks, verbal dominance, and never being caught off guard, Joy had nothing. Her mouth opened, then closed. The veteran who had built a career dismantling others had been rendered speechless by a simple, honest question from someone she had underestimated. Whoopi Goldberg tried to throw a lifeline, attempting to steer the conversation back on track. "Well, this is getting interesting. Let's talk about your tour, Leanne." But Joy's ego refused to retreat. Pride demanded a counterattack, even when the arsenal was empty. "Wait a minute," Joy snapped, voice rising. "Are you seriously trying to school me on comedy? Do you even know who you're talking to? I've been on television longer than you've been telling jokes at church socials or wherever it is you perform." Church socials. The phrase hung like a desperate punch, aimed at making Leanne feel small, a last-ditch swing from someone who knew she was losing the battle. Leanne's smile never faltered, not for a second. Church socials, comedy clubs, theaters, Netflix specials, sold-out arenas, you name it, Joy. But it doesn't matter where you perform or how long you've been doing it. If you've forgotten why you started in the first place, comedy is supposed to heal, not hurt. 8 words. 8 simple words that landed like a sledgehammer on everything Joy had built her identity around. "Oh, spare me the after-school special philosophy," Joy snapped, her composure cracking completely. "Comedy is about truth, and the truth is, not everyone is cut out for this business. Some people should stick to their little local circuits instead of trying to play with the big girls." Big girls. The words came out as a playground taunt, a feeble attempt to dominate while shrinking under pressure. The audience shifted, sensing the heat of real hostility radiating from Joy, but Leanne remained calm, serene, even patient as a hunter who knows her prey is already wounded. "Big girls?" Leanne repeated softly, her southern charm intact, but now laced with cold steel. "Joy, honey, let me tell you something about big girls. Big girls don't need to tear others down to feel important. Big girls lift each other up." 2 statements, parallel, precise. A mirror held up to Joy's entire career, reflecting back an uncomfortable truth. "Please," Joy scoffed, the defensive mechanism of someone with no defense left. "This isn't kindergarten. This is show business. If you can't handle a little criticism, maybe you should go back to whatever small-town comedy night you crawled out of." Leanne tilted her head, feigning confusion, her tone still gentle. "Is that what you call this? Because where I come from, we call it being ugly for no good reason." The audience gasped, 200 people, inhaling sharply in unison. And then Leanne leaned in, her voice lowering, soft as a lullaby but striking like a missile. "But since you brought up criticism, let me offer you some. Your whole career has been built on punching down. You make fun of people who cannot fight back. You mock folks who don't have the platform to defend themselves, and you call it comedy. But real comedy, Joy. Real comedy punches up." "Real comedy," Leanne continued, "takes aim at power, at injustice, at those who truly deserve a laugh turned against them, not at everyday people just trying to live their lives." Joy's face had shifted from red to purple in less than 10 minutes. The transformation was complete. From smug predator to cornered animal. "How dare you come on my show and psychoanalyze me? You don't know anything about my career or what I've accomplished," she spat, desperation creeping into her voice. "Oh, I know plenty," Leanne replied, smiling sweetly, loading her final rounds. "I know you've spent years making jokes at the expense of regular people. I know you think being from New York makes you smarter than everyone else. I know you built your brand on being the mean girl who never grew up. And honestly, Joy, it's just sad. Sad. One word. No anger, no contempt. Just pure cutting pity, the kind that hits deeper than any insult." Joy's voice cracked. "I am successful. I have a career. I have influence. What do you have? A few YouTube videos and some county fair gigs?" Leanne laughed. Warm, authentic, genuine. The kind of laughter that made the studio lean in and reminded everyone why people loved her. "You know what I do have, Joy? I have people who come to my shows and leave feeling better about themselves. I have fans who tell me my comedy helped them through the darkest times of their lives. I have the respect of my peers because I treat people with dignity. Can you say the same?" Silence. Thick, deafening silence that wasn't just uncomfortable, it was damning. Joy opened and closed her mouth like a fish gasping for air, searching desperately for a comeback that wouldn't make her look even worse. Sunny host tried to throw a lifeline. "Well, different comedians have different styles, right?" Leanne didn't blink. "Is cruelty a style now? because that's all I've seen from you today. You invited me on this show not for a conversation, but to embarrass me in front of millions. And the sad part is, you've only embarrassed yourself." Joy finally found her voice, trembling with barely contained rage. "You think you're so much better than me with your folksy wisdom and holier-than-thou attitude? Let me tell you something, sweetheart. This business will chew you up and spit you out. Nice girls finish last." "Maybe," Leanne replied, thoughtful, calm. "But at least they finish with their souls intact." She leaned in, soft yet piercing. "Tell me, Joy, when you go home at night, are you proud of the person you've become? When you look in the mirror, do you like what you see? When you are alone with your thoughts, are you at peace?" 3 questions. 3 precision strikes that landed like physical blows. 1, 2, 3. Each hit staggered Joy visibly. Her carefully constructed composure crumbled. For one terrible moment, the mask slipped entirely. The audience saw past the bravado, past the designer clothes, past 40 years of carefully curated persona, straight to the insecure, bitter, lonely woman underneath. "I don't have to listen to this," Joy stammered, hands trembling as she fumbled with her notes. "This is my show. My show." "Actually," Leanne said softly, her calm voice carrying the weight of undeniable truth, "I think this is the audience's show. They decide what's worth watching. And right now, they're watching you throw a tantrum because someone finally had the courage to tell you the truth." Joy looked around the table, desperate for support, for validation, for anyone to take her side. She found nothing. Uncomfortable silence. Whoopi studied her hands. Sunny stared at the ceiling. The rest avoided eye contact as if their careers depended on it. The realization hit like a freight train. She was utterly alone. "You don't understand," Joy whispered, the fight draining from her. "This business, you have to be tough. You have to fight for your place. You have to do whatever it takes." "No, honey," Leanne replied gently, almost pitying, and somehow that made it even more devastating. "You don't have to become a monster to succeed," Leanne said softly, each word deliberate, precise. "You chose to become one. And the saddest part is, you've convinced yourself it was necessary, when really it was just easier than doing the hard work of being genuinely funny." The studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioning, the subtle whir of the cameras, the sound of a career collapsing in real time. Joy stared at Leanne with a mixture of hatred and something far more terrifying: recognition. It was as if she were seeing herself clearly for the first time in decades, and the reflection was horrifying. Her breathing became shallow, rapid, but just as quickly, fury returned. She could not withstand the mirror Leanne was holding up, so she did what she had always done when cornered. She attacked. "You know what?" Joy stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor with a screech that made the audience wince. "I've had enough of this sanctimonious garbage. You come on here acting like some kind of comedy saint, but you're nothing. A nobody from nowhere trying to lecture me about my career." Leanne remained seated, calm, her posture relaxed, her expression compassionate rather than triumphant. "Joy, please sit down. We're just having a conversation." "No." Joy's voice echoed through the studio like thunder. "This is not a conversation. This is an ambush. You came here with an agenda to make me look bad, and I will not stand for it." The audience shifted, uneasy, some pulling out their phones. This was turning into a historic meltdown, unfolding live. Producers debated frantically whether to cut to commercial. Any choice was a disaster. "I did not come here with any agenda except to talk about comedy," Leanne said, her voice calm, carrying clearly over the chaos. "But if you feel attacked, maybe you should ask yourself why. Sometimes the truth feels like an attack, because we've been lying to ourselves for so long that honesty seems like violence." "Stop it!" Joy slammed her hand on the table. Mugs jumped and rattled. "Stop with your phony psychology and fake wisdom. You think you're so smart, so insightful. Well, here's some insight for you. This business is cutthroat, survival of the fittest, and the fittest isn't some small-town nobody who thinks she can waltz in here and lecture her betters." Her words hung in the air, exposing every ugly thought behind them. Whoopi finally tried to intervene. "Joy, maybe we should take a breath." "Don't you start to, Whoopi," Joy snapped, whirling on her like a wounded animal. "I'm the one with the edge. I ask the tough questions. I say what everyone else is thinking." Leanne's voice cut through the storm, calm and unyielding. "What I see, Joy, is someone who mistakes cruelty for courage. Someone who confuses being mean with being smart. You don't ask tough questions, you ask cruel ones. There is a difference." Joy's face turned an alarming shade of purple, spittle flying as she launched her final desperate volley. I don't have to take this from some amateur who probably learned comedy from watching sitcom reruns in her trailer. You want to know what real comedy is? Real comedy is telling the truth, even when it hurts. And the truth is, you will never be more than a novelty act, a cute little distraction for people who don't appreciate real talent. The silence that followed was different from before. Not just uncomfortable, not just tense. Damning. Even Joy realized she had crossed a line, one that could never be uncrossed, but she was too deep in her rage to back down. Leanne stood slowly, gracefully, her presence commanding attention without demanding it. When she spoke, her voice carried a profound sadness that made every word hit harder. You know what, Joy? You're right about one thing. Comedy is about telling the truth, even when it hurts. So here's a truth for you. You are not the victim here. You are not the wronged party. You are not being unfairly attacked. You are just a bitter woman who has spent decades tearing others down. So much that you've forgotten how to build anything up, including yourself. The studio held its breath. The stage was silent except for the faint hum of cameras and the collective heartbeat of the audience. The veteran of 40 years of verbal domination had been unmasked not by anger, not by force, but by calm, honest truth delivered with the precision of a master comedian. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Leanne raised a gentle hand that somehow commanded absolute silence. I came here today genuinely excited to meet you, Leanne said, her voice calm yet firm. I grew up watching you, thinking you were this strong, funny woman who had made it in a business that destroys most people. But what I see now is someone who let that business turn her into something ugly. And the saddest part? You don't even see it. How dare you, Joy whispered, but the fire in her voice was gone, replaced by the ashes of fury. I dare, Leanne replied, because someone needs to. Your co-hosts won't tell you, they're too scared. Your producers won't tell you, they're too concerned about ratings. But your audience deserves better than what you have become. They keep watching, not because you bring them joy, but out of habit, out of morbid curiosity, wondering what train wreck comes next. When was the last time you actually brought anyone joy? Joy? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Joy's eyes darted around the studio, cameras capturing every moment, audience members witnessing her unraveling, co-hosts refusing to meet her gaze. For the first time in 41 years, she seemed to truly see what everyone else had already known, a broken, bitter woman who had traded her humanity for the illusion of power. I've been doing this for 30 years, Joy said weakly, her experience wielded like a shield that offered no protection anymore. And what do you have to show for it? Leanne asked gently, almost kindly. From where I'm sitting, all I see is someone who spent 3 decades becoming someone nobody wants to be around, unless they're being paid to tolerate her. Joy's face crumpled like paper in a fist. For a moment, it seemed she might actually cry on national television. Then anger flared one last time, a dying star exploding before collapsing into nothing. You think you've won something here? Joy's voice shrilled, desperate, stripped of pretense. You think humiliating me in front of millions makes you feel good? Congratulations, you've destroyed someone already down. Actually, Leanne said quietly, it makes me sad. Because I can see the person you could have been. I can see glimpses of the comedian who probably started out wanting to make people laugh, not cry. But you buried her so deep under bitterness and cruelty that I don't think even you remember who she was anymore. Joy swayed slightly as if those words had physically knocked her off balance. The fight had gone out of her. The predator had become prey. The hunter had been hunted. She looked around the studio one final time, searching for something to hold on to, and in a broken, defeated whisper said, I cannot do this anymore. Without another word, Joy Behar walked off the set. This was not a stormy exit or a theatrical retreat. It was the shuffle of someone who had finally seen herself clearly and could not bear it. The sound of her high heels echoed, click, 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 fading into silence. The cameras kept rolling. The audience sat frozen, stunned. No one moved. No one spoke. No one breathed. Leanne watched her disappear into the wings, her expression holding no triumph, only genuine sadness. Whoopi tried to salvage the moment. Well, that was certainly something, Leanne. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for having me, Leanne replied, her heart clearly no longer in the pleasantries. I hope Joy finds what she's looking for. I truly do. As the show cut to commercial, the audience began to process what they had just witnessed. They had tuned in for light entertainment, celebrity gossip, and fluff. Instead, they had watched the complete psychological deconstruction of a television personality who had spent 4 decades hiding behind cynicism and cruelty. In the end, it wasn't anger that brought Joy Behar down. It wasn't shouting, and it wasn't matching cruelty with cruelty. It was something far more powerful. Unvarnished truth, delivered with compassion by someone who refused to play by the old rules, who refused to sink to her level, who refused to become what she had become. And that is how a small-town comedian from Tennessee did what no politician, no celebrity, and no fellow comedian had managed in 40 years. She held up a mirror, forcing Joy Behar to see herself, truly see herself. The image was so unbearable that Joy could not face it any longer. What does it take for someone to truly change after decades of becoming someone they were never meant to be? Is redemption possible after 41 years of cruelty? Can a person rebuild themselves after tearing down so many others? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one.